Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Leadnap Gaming. Today we're going to talk about which Starlifter is not only the best one, but the only one you really need to buy. Okay, if you've been around this channel a while, you know that I am a huge fan of the Hercules Starlifter. I love all three, but coupled with their cost and their function, there is a simple truth many a prospective Herc owner want to deny. You only need the C2. Now, if you want an A2, we are just a few hundred subs away from Led's Legion voting on which ship will be the 10k sub giveaway prize. If you want to make sure it's the A2, go ahead and join the Legion and have a voice in the choice. Otherwise, simply be subscribed to this channel and comment on videos each month to be chosen as one of 5 names drawn each month to be entered into that drawing. I said the C2 is the only Hercules Starlifter variant you need to own, and there's plenty of chance you are already working your way down to the comments to explain how wrong I am. Stick around though, because when I'm done, I might just save you a few $100s. Let's first just get the A2 out of the way, because as far as cargo running goes, it just isn't a cargo ship. The A2 is a specialized niche ship, a planetary bomber. There seems to be a lot of dreamy-eyed theory crafting running around that it won't just do that, and that the A2 will somehow also run mega cargo loads and be all that in a cup of milk. The Hercs have changed almost not at all since their original concept release. All three feature a base deck that operates as the cargo deck, with a single supporting deck above with bridge, escape pods, system controls, engine room, and life support areas. We know from released images from CIG that this has not changed. We even have this A2 image showing the modular bomb racks to confirm that the A2 has not varied from this concept. A lot of people heard modular and are thinking about the modular torpedo bays of the Retaliator. But modular in this case means the payload changes between these 128 bomb racks that'll be used for carpet bombing and these Moab bombs, which are more of a drop one be done solution to pesky planetary annoyances. The bays will not come out. That cargo space will not come back. I do think it's possible CIG adds mine laying to the options as a surprise, but I won't hold my breath, and neither should you. This makes the A2 the very worst buy of all. It only has a projected 234 SCU of cargo. Yes, it can fit a tonk, but that isn't the point. This is not a logistical ship, it's an offensive weapon. Since it has a larger crew but no more space than the others, your living accommodations will be a little more Spartan as well. This isn't to say that you couldn't use it for cargo, because you can, and those 234 SCU are still not worth scoffing at. Thing is, your guns face down. This is, after all, for attacking planets which have a fixed surface. This makes you incredibly susceptible to attack from above. And because this ship is massive, with massive engines, you're gonna drink fuel like it's going out of style. A Freelancer Max carries just over half the same cargo load, is far more efficient, way more capable of defending itself, half the crew, and never mind a quarter of the cost to buy. Don't get me wrong, I love the A2. I have an A2. It's just the major reality check here is planetary bombing will not be the sort of everyday activity that's worth having one for, nor will it make any money. If you could only have one, this isn't it. Which leaves us with the real matchup, the M2 versus the C2. Now the M2 trades a little SCU space, about an A2's worth, for the heavy armor of the A2. It also has a nice chin turret that boosts your forward-facing firepower, as well as giving you some lower half protection. All for just adding a single crew member. Not too shabby. These are all reasons historically I and many others have promoted the M2 over the C2, and they're not bad reasons at all. We don't have armor values in game yet, and that will be a substantial difference between the C2 and the M2, let alone the Hercs from, say, the lightly skinned Caterpillar. Getting your cargo through dangerous space is part of the cargo game. After all, if it were totally safe, you would probably just run a whole series. On the C2, your core forward firepower is pilot controlled, and the underbelly is entirely vulnerable for that sort of flipped issue of the A2. At 468, You're just 100 SCU from the Caterpillar, but a much tougher nut to crack with the M2, even though the SCU numbers might seem radical. You can still carry 2 tonks just like the C2, meaning the most valuable cargo abilities the Starlifters really bring to the table is no different between the two. These are very solid arguments in the M2's favor, and they would carry the day except for one little issue. Now, you might guess I'm talking about that $100 price margin between the two, and that's actually likely to shrink or stay the same on release. However, that isn't the problem. The problem is simply the M2's a horrible value for the money, and I mean real or in-game currency. But that armor, the SCU and vehicle numbers, yes, they're all solid. Problem is there's a better ship, the Carrack. Just look at them feature by feature. Armor, heavy. Pad size, large. Turrets, well, the Carrack has one more, but no pilot-controlled guns. SCU, the Carrack has 456 to the M2's 468. Sacrificing that 12 SCU gives you so much more. The Carrack has a medical bay, the M2 doesn't. The Carrack has a repair station for both the ship and its components, the M2 doesn't. Carrack has an armory, which the available FPS lockers on the M2 will certainly be sufficient, but why not be sure? Additionally, the Carrack has a docking collar because you won't always be planetside. We don't know for sure, but the Carrack is probably spec'd better for longer range transit too. The Carrack could end up being slower, we just don't have that data yet, but it's not slowed compared to other ships its size, so you're unlikely to really notice a difference there as a result. It's not just a pay-per-feature listing comparison either. Buy an M2 and you are doing one thing, running cargo. Even if you're transporting tanks for an org war, you're still just running cargo. Give up carrying 2 tonks and spend an extra $100, and you gain exploration, medical play, repair, and with the modular pods, science and who knows whatever else. Aside from those pilot-controlled guns, which are still on the ship in a turret, the Carrack offers all of the combat capability while actually being a military combat ship, unlike the M2. The cost per SCU, per armor value, per weapon is all cheaper on the Carrack. The M2 just isn't cheap enough to sacrifice all those features, leaving only the C2, which might be the last man standing, but is absolutely a worthy buy on its own merits, especially because there is not a similarly priced cargo ship that can do what it can. Delivering a whopping projected 624 SCU, only the Merchantman might come in higher in that protected cargo class. No, the Privateer is not a cargo ship. It delivers that literal payload with a crew of only 2, maximizing the profits. Not being a military ship, it will carry industrial components stock, which again will be cheaper to maintain and currently deliver a faster ship. Its only real sacrifice from the M2 is that chin turret and medium instead of heavy armor. That might seem like a bad deal, but medium armor still outclasses the armor on the other mass-protected hauler from Drake. While the per-feature cost of the M2 makes it a bad deal compared to another ship in a different class that happens to carry the same amount of cargo boxes, the C2 is remarkably cheap. It, like the M2, only runs cargo, but there's no sacrifice made for it to do so. Where a ship like the Carrack would still boast more features and gameplay loops, the C2 carries half a Carrack more cargo, at 60% of the cost to buy one. It isn't a problem if you're only getting a cargo ship here because you're buying the premier protected cargo ship. It's easy when talking about the differences of the M2 and C2 to think that the latter is weaker, but the C2 is a tough nut because all the Starlifters are. It's like being 6 feet tall in a family of 6'7" folks. You're short, but not really. So let's take a moment to talk about some purchasing considerations. If you can only have one, the C2 is the best deal and will deliver the best results. That said, if you were comfortable with the M2 price tag and can only have one ship overall, pinch a few pennies and get a Carrack instead. That's because if the number of ships you can afford is limited, the Carrack delivers the more playable value overall. If you're going to have 2, the C2 and the A2 are probably the best bet, because while the A2's niche and pointless as a cargo ship, you're getting something unique. Just keep in mind you can almost afford the C2 and the M2 together for the cost of the A2. The one scenario I struggle to justify today is really having both the C2 and the M2. In fact, there was only one scenario that owning an M2 over the C2 made any real sense. If you don't own a Carrack, and you're not going to. If you are a simple space trucker, planning to work some dangerous space and plan only to own one ship to do that in, the M2 is the best choice. Only then will you appreciate its sacrifices, but then again, if you only owned one ship, the Carrack would still deliver more value. Of course, if you're going to own all three, you probably actually stopped watching by now because there's no choice to be made. So let me know down in the comments if this changed your mind, or if you're still convinced I'm wrong and why that is. Share this with your Starlifter loving friends, hit that like button, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and I will catch you all next time.